The screams of wild horses echoed through the canyon as Sophia Jensen clung desperately to the rocky ledge, her fingers bleeding from the effort of holding on. It was 1878 in the unforgiving Arizona Territory, and what had begun as a simple expedition to collect botanical samples had turned into a battle for survival when a startled rattlesnake had sent her horse bolting toward the canyon's edge. "Help!" She cried out, her voice barely audible over the howling wind that threatened to tear her from the precarious grip she maintained. The wind whipped her chestnut hair across her face as her boots scrambled for purchase on the crumbling shale. Below her, a 100-foot drop promised certain death on the jagged rocks of the canyon floor. Sophia had come west from Boston 3 months earlier, determined to document the flora of the frontier for the New England Botanical Society. At 24, she had already published 2 scientific papers and was considered a rising star in botanical illustration. But her refined Eastern education had not prepared her for the raw danger of the West. With each passing second, the ledge beneath her fingers crumbled more. Her arms ached with the strain of supporting her body. Tears streamed down her dust-covered face as the reality of her situation became clear. She was going to die here, alone, her body never to be found. Just as her right hand lost its grip, she felt strong fingers wrap around her wrist. "I've got you, madam," a deep voice called out. "Just hold on." Sophia looked up to see a sun-bronzed face beneath a worn leather hat, determination etched in every line. The man lay flat on his stomach, one arm extended down to her, the other anchored around an outcropping of rock. "Give me your other hand," he shouted against the wind. With the last of her strength, Sophia swung her free arm upward, and the stranger caught it. She felt herself being pulled upward inch by agonizing inch as the man's muscles strained against her weight. After what seemed like an eternity, she felt solid ground beneath her chest, then her waist, and finally her legs. The cowboy dragged her several yards from the edge before they both collapsed, breathing heavily. For a long moment, they lay side by side on the dusty ground, the enormity of what had just happened washing over them. When Sophia finally caught her breath, she turned to look at her rescuer. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 28 or 29, with piercing blue eyes that contrasted with his tanned skin. A thin scar ran along his jawline, and several days' worth of stubble covered his face. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice hoarse from screaming. "You saved my life, Mr. Nash, Nathan Nash," he replied, sitting up and adjusting his hat. "Just doing what anyone would do, madam." "Not anyone would risk their life hanging off a canyon edge for a stranger," Sophia said, wincing as she examined her bloodied hands. "I'm Sophia Jensen." Nathan nodded, taking in her torn dress and Eastern accent. "You're a long way from home, Miss Jensen. What brings you out to this particular slice of hell?" Sophia gestured toward her satchel, which had somehow remained strapped across her body during the ordeal. "I'm a botanical illustrator. I was collecting samples when my horse spooked at her rattlesnake." Nathan's eyes widened slightly. "You're out here alone. That's mighty dangerous territory for anyone, let alone a lady scientist." A flash of indignation crossed Sophia's face. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Nathan glanced meaningfully at the canyon edge, one eyebrow raised. Sophia had the grace to blush. "Well, usually today was an exception." Nathan stood and offered her his hand. "Your horse is long gone by now. Mine's tethered about a quarter-mile back. I can take you to Copper Springs." "It's the nearest town." Sophia accepted his help, grimacing as she got to her feet. Now that the immediate danger had passed, she became aware of a sharp pain in her ankle. When she tried to put weight on it, she nearly collapsed. Nathan caught her before she could fall. "Sprained or broken?" "Just sprained, I think," Sophia said through gritted teeth. "I can walk." She took another step and bit back a cry of pain. Without a word, Nathan bent and scooped her into his arms. "Mr. Nash, what are you doing?" she protested, though her arms instinctively wrapped around his neck. "Saving us both time," he replied matter-of-factly. "Sun's going down in a couple hours. We need to reach town before dark. Mountain lions get mighty curious after sunset." Sophia wanted to argue but couldn't deny the logic. Besides, the feeling of his strong arms around her was oddly comforting after her brush with death. As Nathan carried her toward his horse, Sophia noticed details she'd missed in the chaos of her rescue. His clothes were worn but clean, his gun belt held a well-maintained Colt revolver, and a deputy's star was pinned to his vest. "You're a lawman," she observed. Nathan nodded. "Deputy Sheriff of Copper Springs, was tracking a horse thief when I heard your screams." When they reached his horse, a magnificent chestnut gelding, Nathan carefully set Sophia down on a flat rock. He adjusted the saddle and then helped her mount, climbing up behind her. The ride to Copper Springs took nearly 2 hours. At first, Sophia sat stiffly, uncomfortable with the intimate proximity to a man she'd just met. But as the pain in her ankle worsened and exhaustion set in, she found herself leaning back against Nathan's chest, grateful for his solid presence. As they rode, Nathan pointed out landmarks and shared stories about the territory. He'd come west from Missouri after the war, looking for a fresh start after losing his family farm. He'd tried his hand at prospecting before settling into law enforcement 5 years ago. Sophia found herself sharing her own story, her childhood fascination with plants, her struggle to be taken seriously in the male-dominated scientific community, and her determination to document the botanical wonders of the frontier. "Most women who come out here are looking for husbands or running from something," Nathan remarked. "Can't say I've met many lady scientists before." "We exist," Sophia replied dryly, "though I admit my colleagues thought I was mad to undertake this expedition." "They might have had a point," Nathan said, though there was a hint of admiration in his voice. The sun was setting when they finally rode into Copper Springs. The town was larger than Sophia had expected, a proper main street lined with wooden buildings, including a general store, saloon, bank, and small hotel. Nathan took her directly to Doc Morrison's office, a tidy whitewashed building at the edge of town. The doctor, a gruff older man with spectacles and a white beard, confirmed that Sophia's ankle was sprained, not broken. He cleaned and bandaged her hands, then wrapped her ankle tightly. "Stay off that foot for at least 3 days," Doc Morrison instructed, "and keep those hands clean. Last thing we need is infection setting in." After thanking the doctor, Nathan helped Sophia to the Copper Springs Hotel, a modest 2-story building with a small restaurant on the ground floor. The proprietress, a widow named Mrs. Parker, fussed over Sophia when Nathan explained what had happened. "You poor dear, nearly falling to your death." "We'll get you settled in our best room," Mrs. Parker declared, shooting Nathan a look that clearly said she expected him to foot the bill for the lady scientist's accommodations. Nathan tipped his hat to the older woman. "Put it on my account, Mrs. Parker. And send up some supper for Miss Jensen. She's had quite a day." Before he left, Nathan hesitated at the door to Sophia's room. "I need to report to the sheriff, but I'll check on you tomorrow. Is there anything else you need tonight?" Sophia was suddenly overwhelmed by the events of the day. Tears welled in her eyes as the full weight of her near-death experience hit her. "You saved my life today, Mr. Nash. I don't know how to thank you." Nathan's expression softened. "No thanks needed, Miss Jensen. Get some rest." After he left, Sophia ate the stew and biscuits Mrs. Parker sent up, then fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. Her dreams were filled with falling, reaching hands and piercing blue eyes. The next morning, Sophia awoke to sunlight streaming through lace curtains. For a moment she was disoriented, then the events of the previous day came rushing back. She sat up gingerly, relieved to find that while sore, she could move without excruciating pain. A knock at the door announced Mrs. Parker, who brought a breakfast tray and news that Deputy Nash had arranged for a doctor from Phoenix to bring Sophia's belongings from her camp. "That young man rode out at dawn to show the doctor where to find your things," Mrs. Parker said, arranging the tray across Sophia's lap. "Should be back by midday." True to Mrs. Parker's prediction, Nathan returned around noon, dusty but triumphant, with Sophia's saddlebags, botanical specimens, and even her missing horse. "Found her grazing about 2 miles from where you fell," he explained, settling into a chair by Sophia's bed. She seems no worse for the adventure. Sophia was touched by his thoughtfulness. You didn't have to do all this, Nathan shrugged. Wasn't much trouble. Doc Wilson was heading this way anyway. Over the next 3 days, as Sophia followed doctor's orders and rested her ankle, Nathan visited regularly. He brought her meals, books from the small town library, and news of the outside world. They talked for hours about everything and nothing: his work as a deputy, her research, books they'd read, places they'd seen. Sophia found herself looking forward to his visits, watching the clock until he appeared. There was something about Nathan Nash that intrigued her, a combination of frontier toughness and unexpected gentleness. He was well read for a cowboy lawman, quoting Shakespeare and Thoreau with equal ease. When she remarked on it, he explained that his mother had been a schoolteacher who insisted her children appreciate literature. On the 4th day, when Doc Morrison declared Sophia fit to walk short distances with a cane, Nathan took her to dinner at the town's only restaurant. As they ate beefsteak and potatoes, Sophia realized with a start that she was enjoying herself more than she had in years. The rigid formality of Boston society had always chafed, but here, with Nathan, conversation flowed naturally. "So what happens now?" Nathan asked as they lingered over coffee. "Will you continue your expedition or head back east?" Sophia hesitated. Her initial plan had been to spend another month collecting specimens before returning to Boston, but her accident had complicated matters. "I'm not sure. I've barely begun my work, but perhaps it was foolish to think I could manage alone." "You don't strike me as the type to give up easily," Nathan observed. Sophia smiled ruefully. "I'm not, but I'm also not foolhardy enough to ignore a warning. Perhaps I need to rethink my approach." Nathan was silent for a moment, then said, "I have some leave coming. Sheriff wouldn't mind if I took a couple weeks. I could accompany you if you'd like, at least until you've got what you need for your research." Sophia looked up, surprised by the offer. "You do that? Why?" Nathan's eyes met her steadily. "Maybe I find your work interesting, or maybe I just want to make sure you don't fall off any more cliffs." 2 days later, they set out from Copper Springs with supplies for 2 weeks. Nathan had arranged for a packhorse to carry their equipment, and he'd mapped out a route that would take them through varied terrain where Sophia could find different plant species. The first few days were productive but uneventful. Sophia collected dozens of specimens, carefully pressing them between sheets of paper in her portable press. Nathan proved to be an observant assistant, often spotting unusual plants before she did. In the evenings, they made camp by streams or in the shelter of rock formations, sharing stories around the campfire. On the 5th night, as they sat beside a small fire in a protected hollow, Sophia found herself studying Nathan's profile. The flickering light cast shadows across his strong features, highlighting the quiet strength she'd come to admire. "Why did you really agree to come with me, Nathan?" she asked softly, using his first name for the first time. He was quiet for so long that Sophia thought he might not answer. Finally, he set down his coffee cup and looked at her directly. "When I pulled you up from that ledge," he said slowly, "there was a moment when our eyes met and I felt something I haven't felt in a long time, maybe ever." He paused, seeming to search for words. "I've spent 5 years in Copper Springs keeping the peace, doing my job but not really living. Then you appeared, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to care deeply about something, someone." The honesty of his admission took Sophia's breath away. In Boston, men couched their feelings in flowery language and social conventions. Nathan's straightforward declaration was refreshingly direct. "I felt it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "When you held my hand, even though we were in danger, I felt safe, connected." Nathan moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gentle touch sent a shiver through Sophia. "I've never met anyone like you, Sophia Jensen," he murmured. "A woman brave enough to cross the country alone in pursuit of knowledge, yet kind enough to stop and admire a simple wildflower." When he leaned in to kiss her, it felt as natural as breathing. His lips were warm and gentle against hers, the kiss conveying respect as much as desire. Sophia found herself responding with a passion she hadn't known she possessed, her hands moving to his shoulders, then his hair. They broke apart, both breathless, foreheads touching. "I didn't plan this," Nathan said softly, "but I can't say I'm sorry it happened." "Neither am I," Sophia replied. They spent the rest of the evening talking more openly than before, sharing hopes and fears, dreams and disappointments. Nathan spoke of his desire to someday have his own ranch, a place where he could build something lasting. Sophia confessed her frustration with the limitations placed on women in scientific fields, her determination to prove herself through her work. As the days passed, their connection deepened. During the day, they worked side by side, with Nathan providing protection and assistance as Sophia conducted her research. At night, they explored their growing feelings, with conversations and kisses that grew increasingly passionate. On the 10th day of their expedition, they reached a remote valley filled with flowers Sophia had never seen documented before. She was ecstatic, rushing from plant to plant with childlike enthusiasm while Nathan watched with an indulgent smile. "These specimens will make my reputation," she exclaimed, carefully collecting samples. "The Botanical Society will have to fund a proper expedition when they see these." Nathan's smile faltered slightly. "A proper expedition? You mean you'd come back?" Sophia looked up, suddenly realizing the implications of her words. I hadn't thought that far ahead." That night, the mood around their campfire was subdued. The unspoken question hung between them: what would happen when Sophia's work was complete? Her life and career were in Boston, while Nathan's responsibilities tied him to Copper Springs. "I don't want to lose you," Nathan finally said, breaking the silence. "But I won't ask you to give up your dreams either." Sophia took his hand. "Perhaps we don't need to make decisions tonight. We still have time." But time proved to be in shorter supply than they anticipated. The next morning, they woke to the sound of approaching horses. Nathan reached for his gun, motioning for Sophia to stay behind him as 3 riders came into view. To Nathan's relief, the lead rider was Sheriff Collins from Copper Springs, accompanied by 2 deputies. Nash. The sheriff called, dismounting. "Been looking for you. The Jensen gang hit the Prescott Bank 2 days ago. They're headed this way, and I need every badge I can get." Sophia stepped forward, confused. "Did you say the Jensen gang?" Sheriff Collins eyed her suspiciously. "That's right, madam. 3 brothers, Liam, Patrick, and Thomas Jensen. Meanest bunch of outlaws in the territory. You know them?" "No," Sophia said quickly, "but my name is Jensen, Sophia Jensen. It's just a coincidence." The sheriff didn't look convinced. "That's so. Where you from, Miss Jensen?" "Boston," she replied. "I'm a botanical illustrator. Deputy Nash has been escorting me on a research expedition." Sheriff Collins turned to Nathan, one eyebrow raised. "This true, Nash?" Nathan nodded, his expression professional. "Yes, sir. Miss Jensen had an accident near Copper Canyon. I've been helping her collect her plant specimens." The sheriff grunted. "Well, vacation's over. I need you back in Copper Springs. We're organizing a posse to intercept the Jensen gang before they reach the territorial border." Nathan looked torn. "Sheriff, I gave my word to see Miss Jensen safely through her expedition." "And I'm giving you an order, Deputy," Sheriff Collins said firmly. "We ride out in an hour." After the sheriff moved away to water his horse, Nathan turned to Sophia. "I'm sorry, I can't disobey a direct order." Sophia nodded, fighting back disappointment. "I understand, you have responsibilities. We'll head back to Copper Springs, get you settled at the hotel. Once we've dealt with the Jensen gang, we can figure things out." He took her hands in his. "This isn't how I wanted our time together to end." "It doesn't have to be the end," Sophia said, though even as she spoke the words, she wondered if they were true. The ride back to Copper Springs was tense and hurried. Where before they had meandered, taking time to explore and collect specimens, now they rode directly, pushing the horses as much as possible. Nathan rode beside Sophia, but his mind was clearly on the task ahead, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. They reached Copper Springs by nightfall. The town was in a state of high alert, with armed men gathered outside the sheriff's office and shopkeepers boarding up windows. Nathan helped Sophia settle into the hotel, promising to see her as soon as he could. "Be careful," she said as he prepared to leave. "These men sound dangerous." Nathan kissed her quickly. "I've dealt with their kind before, don't worry about me." But Sophia did worry. All night she paced her hotel room, jumping at every sound from the street below. Around midnight, she heard horses riding out the posse leaving to intercept the outlaws. Nathan was among them, riding into danger while she waited helplessly. The next day brought no news. Sophia tried to distract herself by organizing her specimens and writing up her notes, but her heart wasn't in it. Her thoughts kept returning to Nathan, his smile, his gentle strength, the way he made her feel both protected and respected. On the second day, as Sophia was having lunch in the hotel restaurant, a commotion outside drew her attention. She hurried to the window to see the posse returning. Her heart leapt when she spotted Nathan among them, dusty but apparently unharmed. The men were leading 3 bound prisoners, presumably the Jensen gang. Sophia rushed outside, relief flooding through her. Nathan dismounted when he saw her, his tired face breaking into a smile. "You're safe," she said, stopping just short of embracing him in public. "Told you not to worry," he replied, though the dark circles under his eyes suggested the confrontation had been more dangerous than he'd let on. Later that evening, after the prisoners were secured in the jail, Nathan came to Sophia's hotel room. As soon as the door closed behind him, she was in his arms, her lips finding his in a kiss that conveyed all the fear and relief she'd felt during his absence. When they finally broke apart, Nathan led her to the small settee by the window. "We need to talk," he said, his expression serious. Sophia's heart sank. She'd been dreading this conversation, the inevitable moment when reality intruded on the connection they'd formed. "My research is almost complete," she said quietly. "I should be returning to Boston soon." Nathan nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "And I have responsibilities here. The sheriff is getting older. He's talking about retiring next year. He wants me to take his place." "That's a great honor," Sophia said, genuinely pleased for him despite the implications for their relationship. "It is," Nathan agreed. "But it got me thinking during those long hours tracking the Jensen gang about what's important in life, about what I want my future to look like." He took her hands in his. "Sophia, I know we've only known each other a short time, and I know you have a life and career waiting for you in Boston. But these past 2 weeks have meant more to me than the last 5 years combined." Sophia's heart began to race. "What are you saying, Nathan?" "I'm saying I don't want to lose you," he said simply. "I'm saying that when I was facing down those outlaws, all I could think about was getting back to you. And I'm asking if there's any chance you might consider staying, not giving up your dreams, but maybe finding a way to pursue them here." Sophia was silent, her mind racing. She'd come west for her career, never imagining she might find someone that would make her question her plans to return east. The New England Botanical Society isn't the only organization interested in documenting Western flora, she said slowly. The Smithsonian has been funding expeditions. They might be interested in a permanent field researcher based in the territory. Hope flickered in Nathan's eyes. "You think they'd consider it? With the specimens I've collected, I think they might be very interested." Sophia squeezed his hands. "It wouldn't be easy. I'd need to establish correspondence with colleagues, find a way to ship specimens safely, but it could work." "And us?" Nathan asked quietly. "Could we work?" Instead of answering with words, Sophia leaned forward and kissed him, trying to convey through touch all the emotions swirling within her: fear, hope, and something that felt remarkably like love. When they parted, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not asking for promises, Sophia. Just a chance to see where this might lead. I think," she said carefully, "that sometimes life takes us in unexpected directions. I came west looking for rare plants and found something far more precious." She smiled. "I'd like to see where this leads too." 6 months later, Sophia stood on the porch of a small house on the outskirts of Copper Springs, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Behind her, the house was filled with the delicious smells of the dinner she'd prepared. On the walls hung framed copies of her botanical illustrations, recently published by the Smithsonian. The sound of hoofbeats made her smile. Nathan was returning from his rounds, right on time. As the newly appointed sheriff of Copper Springs, he took his responsibilities seriously, but he always made it home for dinner. Sophia watched as he dismounted and led his horse to the small stable. Even after 6 months, the sight of him still made her heart beat faster. When he spotted her on the porch, his whole face lit up with a smile that was reserved for her alone. "Evening, Mrs. Nash," he called, climbing the steps to join her. "Evening, Sheriff," she replied, accepting his kiss. The gold band on her finger caught the last rays of the setting sun. Their wedding 3 months ago had been a small affair, attended by the townspeople who had come to respect the lady scientist and their sheriff. Sophia's parents had made the journey from Boston, initially skeptical but won over by Nathan's obvious devotion to their daughter. "Any interesting specimens today?" Nathan asked as they entered the house together. "Actually, yes," Sophia said excitedly. "I found what I believe is a previously undocumented variety of cactus flower. I've already started the illustration." Nathan listened with genuine interest as she described her discovery. One of the things Sophia loved most about him was how he valued her work, never treating it as a hobby or diversion, but as the serious scientific pursuit it was. After dinner, they sat on the porch swing, Nathan's arm around her shoulders as they watched the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. "Any regrets?" he asked softly, a question he still posed occasionally, as if afraid she might suddenly realize she'd made a mistake in choosing this life with him. Sophia turned to face him, taking in the features that had become so dear to her, the blue eyes that could be as hard as steel when facing down outlaws, and as soft as summer sky when looking at her. The scar along his jawline that she now traced with her finger, the mouth that could deliver stern justice or tender kisses with equal conviction. "Only one," she said solemnly. Nathan tensed slightly. "What's that?" "That I didn't meet you sooner." She smiled at his relieved expression. "Every day I'm grateful that my horse got spooked by that rattlesnake." Nathan pulled her closer. "And I'm grateful I was close enough to hear your screams, though I'd prefer if you stayed away from canyon edges from now on." "With you to hold on to," Sophia said, resting her head against his shoulder, "I'll always be safe." Above them, the desert sky blazed with stars, witnesses to a love that had begun with a desperate grasp at the edge of disaster and blossomed into something neither had been looking for, but both had found a partnership of equals, built on respect, passion, and the courage to reach for each other even when standing at the edge of the unknown.